So there's been a new upgrade when it comes to the internet computer, and let me explain what that is in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice. However, in case you didn't watch my previous video, it's been Lee the Captain, and did you know that recently it was announced how ICP Pro 5.4.1, which sounds very complicated, but that has been released. What does that do? Now, allegedly, what that has brought to the internet computer is that they're bringing timer support to C++ canisters on the internet computer. First of all, why does this matter? Well, it's because if we just take a look at a very particular statistic, right, regarding C++, according to Statista, 23.5% of developers globally use C++. So of course that matters. That unlocks a lot of developers, for in the case of the internet computer, because C++ is one of the supported programming languages on the internet computer, and it is supported through canister development kits. But besides that, again, this new upgrade, so to speak, bringing timer support to C++ canisters on the internet computer, it's a big thumbs up for me because I think it just makes things a lot more easier for some of the developers out there that do use C++ and maybe they want to build something on the internet computer. Who knows, right? Granted, they could just use Caffeine AI. I think it's just way easier anyways, but you know what? If they want to do it the more traditional way, this does help them. Now, keep in mind, there are some benefits here. I did some research when it comes to this, and apparently now, code could be run automatically after a delay or on a schedule. So this does help developers because, for instance, right, when it comes to maintenance, like periodically, for instance, or let's say reoccurring tasks or something, this timer does matter. It's like, for instance, when you have this socket on the wall and then there's that timer that you can control, that's just kind of what reminds me of this recent upgrade, right? When it comes to the internet computer, because if I take a look at it previously, again, when that feature didn't exist, basically, it just kind of limited, I think, some developers out there. But now that there is, timer support to C++ canisters, I do find it to be pretty interesting. Now, okay, let's talk about what's going on when it comes to the charts in regard to ICP. An around 5% pullback, actually, so around a 5% decrease in the past 24 hours. But does that concern me? Not necessarily, because if we take a look at it, the overall recovery for ICP in the past week now is around almost 44%. So yes, it's been down around 5% in the day, like in the past 24 hours, I should say, but still in the past week, the recovery has been almost 44%. I mean, what is it going to do? Just keep, going on this linear sort of rally like that? No, that's not usually how it works when it comes to this space. Usually there's a recovery, then a bit of a pullback, then a recovery like that. We've even seen it when it comes to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB, and many others. So when people are saying, oh, wow, there's been around a 5% pullback or whatever in the past 24 hours, but in the past week, it's almost recovered 44% despite this around 5% decrease in the past 24 hours. And really, even with this slight recovery, the journey is still maybe kind of far in my opinion. Just take a look at ICP back in November, right? Like I mentioned even in my previous video, it was around $9. So yeah, I mean, we're still quite a ways away from that. We're still over 2 times over than that. But I'm just saying, if I consider just the slight recovery that ICP has been having in the past week, or should I say also in the past month by extension, I don't think it's that bad. Again, especially considering that I think also the fundamentals of the internet computer has been improving. So eventually, if the market really were to pick up, people usually do care about, the upgrades that the project has been having previously in the past. And if I think about it, I don't really need ICP to ever experience a quote-unquote altcoin season anyways, because kind of my mindset is, had ICP stabilized at around $10 or whatever, then okay, maybe it goes back to I don't know, almost $19, like what we saw in 2024. Okay, then that's very boring, right? But on the flip side, because ICP is literally well below $4, even as of right now, my kind of thing is, back then when ICP was around $2 and now seeing it at, over $3, considering how I was dollar cost averaging even at around those times when it was around $2, my thing is, even if it just goes back to $10, I have zero complaints. It already feels like an altcoin season to me, even though it wouldn't, because $10 is considered a little bit bearish actually when it comes to ICP not too long ago. But just because of that pullback right there, if ICP goes to like $10, I have zero complaints, because I feel like when it comes to Ethereum or like Bitcoin, for instance, if they were to recover, like if let's say the market really were to pick up again, their recovery wouldn't be like around 5 times lower than a previous point. It just wouldn't. Bitcoin, okay, let's say it goes to 200 grand in a random hypothetical. You know, we're not 5 times lower than that, right? Bitcoin is not 5 times lower than that. If I take a look at it, again, $2 to $10 basically. $2 is 5 times lower than $10, right? The thing for me is, if Bitcoin, for whatever reason, did that type of movement, like let's say it had like a 5x type of movement for whatever in a random hypothetical, it would be like one of the most celebrated things like ever. But then suddenly what, when it comes to ICP, it's considered really bad, considered really boring. I don't really think about it that way actually, just because, you know, it's like, for instance, let's say a random project did a 700% movement. I'm just going to use this as a random example. But if it did that, at the end of the day, a 700% movement is a 700% movement. So it's not like I would think it's bad for one project and good for the other. I wouldn't think about it that way. I feel like if that movement is that much, then it's something that I respect either way. Also, furthermore, people often question why I don't really believe in microcaps. The reason why is because if my intent, right, is to care about just from $2 to $10, so basically like $2 again is 5 times lower than $10. If that's the only type of movement that would like make me happy, basically, if like already with that, I'm already, you know, again, satisfied, like happy, I don't need to search that type of movement through a random microcap, in my opinion. That's the thing. Because a lot of projects in the top 100, a lot of projects in the top 200, they are around 5 times lower than a point in which we've seen, like, let's say back in 2024 or 2025, in a lot of cases. And they're already kind of massive because, again, inherently they're in the top 200. They already have the community. They already have the proven sort of track record, fundamentally speaking, in some cases. So yeah, I don't need to be searching for, you know, that type of movement through a microcap, if that kind of makes sense, in my opinion. It's like, for instance, let's say I want to drink water, right? Sure, I could go climb a mountain, right? And try to go to the peak of it and try to melt some ice and turn it into water. I could do that, or I could just go inside a grocery store and get it. You know what I mean? It's like the end product is the same, right? If I'm only just looking for water, then I'm just going to go to the grocery store. I'm not going to climb a mountain and go to the peak of it and try to look for water. You know what I mean? I equate like the mountain and trying to get water on top of the mountain like a microcap. Like, again, if my intent is just to get water regardless, why take the most difficult route? I'm all about taking the path of least resistance, if that kind of makes sense. But that's just my mindset. That's been it for today's video. I'll be sure to make more moving forward. I'll be making more updates, so hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. It's Willie the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.